Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Architect Segun Owele, and then I'm glad to be presenting on affordable housing in Nigeria. This is a topic that is close to my heart. Before now, affordable housing has been discussed often as Nigeria's biggest housing problem, and for good reason. However, today, I would love us to talk about it in a different way, not merely as a deficit within the Nigerian building ecosystem, but more or less like the country's strongest marketing signal. All right? More or less like the country's strongest marketing signal. So we'll be discussing briefly on what is driving demand, right? Why supply is not keeping up with the pace of the market. We'll be talking about the reforms and the innovations that are changing the landscape in investment opportunities. And also we delve a little bit into the opportunities that are existing for property investors, developers, and even industry professionals like architects, engineers, and the likes. So a little bit of caveat, it's going to be a lot of numbers and statistics, being that it's real estate insights, like they say, numbers don't lie, right? But then I've tried my best to make sure that I reduce a lot of professional jargon so that we can be able to, flow very well, but then you can't escape the numbers. All right, so affordable housing in Nigeria, trends, challenges, and then investment opportunities behind a 14.9 million unit deficit and the financing stack that is now being built to close it. All right. So we have 5 questions and a short of 15 pages where we'll just delve and then treat this matter. So we'll talk about the market that is being reframed. We'll talk about the policy that is shifting things in the market. We talk about the financing stack, the vehicles that are being introduced by the government that are available to us. Then we talk about the new builders and then the investor playbook. All right. Now, without data, planning becomes guesswork, right? And investment becomes speculative. This was said by architect Ahmed Musa Dangiwa, the former Minister of Housing and Urban Development, as of January 2026, which is true. Without data, planning becomes guesswork, and we know what happens with guesswork. Just recently, a building collapsed in Lagos recently, and then it's hard to say exactly what happened. But really, when we follow up with the data, you find that a building that will collapse in 2030, it would have been showing signs from the first day the architect started drawing, or from the first day the engineer started designing, or from the first day the land was broken and then foundation was being laid, all right? So it's all a cascade, like a dominoes effect of everything coming up together as one, right? So that's why without data, planning is guesswork, and guesswork is not something that you want to play with, all right, in the building industry. So yeah, Nigeria's housing story has shifted. The deficit is the demand signal. Now, everything is about perspective. So to a layman, we see deficits, they see deficits, but to investors and real estate professionals, you should see demand. So that is why we have to reframe this as the country's marketing signal, the country's strongest marketing signal, all right? And so they see it as a deficit, but it is a demand signal, and it is not a problem statement, all right? It's not a problem statement. So we're looking at 228 million people. Now this is the demand. You are looking at 228 million people in Nigeria, all right? Just a summary, right? And they're growing at 2.5% per year. 228 million Nigerians growing at 2.5% per year, and then urbanizing at 4.3%. Meaning people are moving from rural areas to urban areas, and the rate of movement is 4.3% per year, with Lagos having the highest percentage, right? Then followed by Port Harcourt, Kano, and the rest. So the demand flow only goes up. It's not coming down anytime sooner. So it goes up, all right? And in the capital, the mortgage and the GDP is less than 1%. All right, and that's sad news. The mortgage and GDP is less than 1%. The lowest base in any major economy is also the largest runway, right? And then the NMRC. Now, this I call plumbing. They are like the vehicles, so I call them plumbing. So the NMRC is the Nigerian Mortgage Refinancing Company. NMRC is the Nigerian Mortgage Refinancing Company. Many of you will be hearing some names, some organizations for the very first time today. There are things that the government have put in place really to help us achieve affordable housing. So NMRC is Nigeria Mortgage Refinancing Company. The MOFI is Ministry of Finance Incorporated. These are vehicles, and then FHFL is Family Housing Fund Limited. And then pension equity rules are finally wired together. So these are the vehicles, this is the capital, and then this is the demand, all right? So from 28 million guests to 14.9 million facts. So there was a time the marketing, the problem was evaluated as 28 million, right? But with much data and calculation, it fell down to 14.9 million, which is not a fact. However, it still says a lot about the demand flow going up. This is a whole lot of playing field for investors, for property developers to tap into. All right, we'll go into numbers very soon. So the housing units, the National Housing Data Technical Committee's first scientific estimate is 40.9 million. And they derive this from census data, household surveys, and the persons per room adequacy indices. And we got this data from Federal Ministry of Housing and Urban Development in their 14th National Council at Ilorin. So this new figure changes, right? We have the capital can finally be sized, right? So at 3.5 million naira per unit, the gap implies a 21 trillion naira total addressable financing need. What does this mean? It means that what we need to capture 14.9 million deficit or supply, housing supply, is 21 trillion naira, which is $15 billion. $15 billion is needed to solve the housing problem in Nigeria today. All right, yeah. So, secondly, the annual rate return is the real story. So Nigeria needs 550,000 units per year to keep pace. So for us to close the gap, we have to be building and providing and delivering 550,000 units per year. Yeah, combined with public plus private output. All right, so now when you say public plus private output, we're looking at PPP, public-private partnership project, 50,000, and then the shortfall is recurring opportunities for every other persons. Okay, now quality is now in the framework. Now over 15 million existing units fail adequacy standards, which is what we see every day. Yeah, so over 15 million existing units fail adequacy standards. Retrofit, replacement, and upgrade are now investable categories, not just new build. What does this mean? So it means that because of over 15 million existing units that are failing, it provides a new market for retrofitting, replacement, and upgrade. Do you understand? So for instance, this square meter was not designed this way. But when we moved in, we had to redesign it. All right, so it created a new market for some folks. All right, so it keeps going up. The demand flow keeps going up. It's not coming down sooner, and it's good news to investors and private property developers, right? But then the sad news is that how do we access the capital for property developers, and then for citizens, how do we access the capital? So it's still the same question that everybody's asking from different angles and perspective. We address that. So this demand flow refuses to fall. It's not going to fall. It has refused to fall. All right. So 5 non-negotiable forces shape the housing demand curve in Nigeria, and none of it depend on the cycle. So all 4 big city signals point to the same way. Population number 1, 228 million people in need of housing, and these people are growing at 2.5% per year. 2.5% per year. All right. And then Africa's largest market and youth squid pyramid forming new household fast, especially Lagos, Nigeria. Nigeria is a young nation. About 70% of Nigerians are below 30 or around 30 to 40. It's a young nation, so the housing demand needs to be met in Nigeria real fast. And then the urban growth is 4.3%. Lagos absorbs 6,000 new residents every single day. Lagos absorbs 6,000 residents every single day on this small piece of land. So there was a time I was coming to the island with my uncle from Magodo, and then we drove past. No, of course, you go through the Third Miller Bridge and the rest. We spent about 4 hours from Magodo to where we're going on the island, and then my uncle looked at me where I was seated at the back seat. He said, "Ore," that's the name he refers to me as at home. He said, "What's the travel time from Akure to Onyi-Akoko?" Because I'm from Onyi-Akoko in Ondo State. I said it's less than 2 hours. So that means that if anybody is going to our village from Akure and we all took off at the same time, that person would have reached the village before we have reached our destination. I said, wow. Right. And this is because everybody is coming into Lagos. Lagos alone is absorbing 6,000 residents every single day. All right. And the annual demand is we need 550,000 units every year to keep pace with the household formation. Not with this Gen Z generation where everybody wants to run away from their father's house. You know, at 20, 21, 22, 24, they want to move out. And really, it's because they're responsible. They're thinking well. I feel that when a man or a woman leaves their father's house early, there's a part of your brain that switches up. You know, now you have to pay rent, you have to pay, you have to pay bills. So you are just awake. All right. So now 550,000 housing units needs to be delivered every year. That's outstanding, right? And the Lagos requirement is 3.4 million. So Lagos specific deficit is 3.4 million. Over 80% of the city's 25 million residents currently live in informal housing. Over 80% of the city's 25 million residents currently live in informal housing. So what are informal housing? I mean, someone is squatting here, someone is squatting there, makeshift buildings here and there. And I think Lagos Sanwo-Olu has decided to, our excellency, the Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu has given some folks the ultimatum of, I think this month or next month, to move out of a Badagry median. Makeshift housing. No, it's because of the housing deficit and the problem we are facing. And the ownership rate is just 20%. Home ownership rate is down from 30% in 2019. So which means 8 in 10 Nigerians now rent. 8 in 10 Nigerians now rent. And rents in prime corridors are up to 200% in 4 years. And the good news and the bad news is that people will always pay rent. And there are some folks that they will never buy a home until they die. It's the truth, right? So as bad as this news is, it's also good news in an extent if you're able to see prospectively into what the problem is and how to solve it. So the undersupply is not a speculative statistics. It is the structural reason prices keep moving up in every exit scenario, sales, lease, or rent. And we understand that sale, lease, or rent is also a byproduct of the housing deficit. Why do people lease or rent? It's because they see opportunity. They see opportunity. They don't want to let go of the property. So how do I eat my cake and have it? Let me lease it out. Right? Same thing with rent. All right. Now, these 4 frictions are slowing supply. These 4 frictions are slowing supply. Friction number 1, land and title. So 60% of land is untitled. 60% of land is untitled. Many folks are buying risks today because when you buy land, they give you receipts, family receipts, this and that. They tell that, see, our word is our bond. No, the farm, and really you're binding to risk because most of this land are untitled, and really it takes a whole lot to title your land, right? Yeah, it does. So registration takes 92 days across 12 procedures and costs up to 15.8% of property value. All right, so we're now discussing what adds up to making affordable housing somewhat like a dream. When your documentation takes about 15.8% of the property value itself. So let's put it into perspective. You bought the land for 30 million naira, and then the price of documentation is 15.8% of 30 million naira. By the time you perfect your land titling and documentation, you want to resell it. You resell it at about 60% above the value, if I'm correct, right? Yeah. So the result is about $300 billion in dead capital that cannot be collateralized or mortgaged. Many people are not ready to title their land at all. Number 2, friction, mortgage financing. This one is very bad. Mortgage and GDP is less than 1%. Perspective. This is versus 18.9% in Namibia. So mortgage facilities in Namibia is 18.9%. So that means that they have some form of financial structure that helps the citizens to own homes. So in Namibia, it's 18.9%. In South Africa, it is 16.2%. And this number is fewer than 25,000 active mortgages nationally, right? And the commercial bank rate runs at 20 to 28%, out of reach for most working households. And yet Nigeria's mortgage and GDP is less than 1%. Right. So it's slowing down supply. Number 3, friction is materials and costing. This one we can relate very well to this without even saying so much about it. Cement is 442% above what it used to be. Granite is 300+% above what it used to be. And when you put all of these things together, you find that before, I think in 2020, a 9 inches hollow block was being sold for, I think, around 150 naira, if I'm correct. 150 naira, but today it's around 800 to 900 naira. And you find that the strength of the material of the blocks now has weakened a lot because people are now shelving the use of cement because cement has gone up. Cement has gone up. So you see, when that building collapses, you have to also look at what was used to mold the blocks as well. And everything falls back to these points. Okay? All right. Number 4, friction, approvals. 60+ days for a Lagos permit. I think they're working so hard to make sure that they reduce the number of days you get your permits today. And Lagos is trying to make sure that Lagos has also digitalized all of these things, right? Yeah, all of these things to make sure that people get their documentations out faster. So building permits cost about 45k to 375k and expire in 6 months if construction does not start. Right, but Lagos is piloting a 10-minute digital permit system and a watch this space and reform. So these are frictions that are slowing down supply. All right. So let's look at the policies that are shifting things. So we've seen the problem and then we want to examine the policies. So we have a federal posture that is retooling everything. So the 2023 split housing into its own ministry, a national housing data center, the renewed hope program, and the draft monthly rent regime mark the most coordinated affordable housing push since the 1991 policy. I know we all have our take regarding the monthly rent regime thing. Have you heard about it before? Anybody in the room? So the government of Lagos State has tried to bring about paying of rent on a monthly basis. Some have started, right? All right, so we look at, so we see 4 levers that are worth tracking: the renewed hope cities and estates. Have you heard about this? The renewed hope cities and estates. I heard about it last year. So A total of 127 billion naira was budgeted for 100,000 units across 14 states plus the FCT. And the price point from 8.5 million naira for one bedroom, not studio apartment, one bedroom, to 12.5 million naira for a 3-bed apartment. And then it's targeting 250,000 jobs live across 150 communities in 2025. So it's something that you can Google, Renewed Hope Cities and Estates, all right? Then we have other levers that is worth tracking: land documentation and reform. So the Federal Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, in conjunction with the World Bank, they've tried to formalize this land documentation thing so that it will be easy for folks to document their land without so much bottlenecks and bureaucracy. The easier it is for folks to document their lands, the faster people can build without having the government to demolish their properties in the next 10 years. Then we have pension equity for mortgages, and then we have monthly rent transition. Lagos vowed to enforce monthly rentals over the annual lump sum, and this reshapes tenant cash flow and creates a real domestic rental yield market. I would love to really hear your thoughts about the monthly rental transition. Just like when the federal government tried to update the tax laws, and then people were really speaking so much about it, but this is not really taking so much conversation on social media like it should. I really want to hear our thoughts after now about it. All right, so the stack is finally legible. So now we're talking about the vehicles, all right? The vehicles. So four vehicle vehicles now offer fixed rates, long tenor mortgages at single-digit rates versus 20 to 20% of commercial bank loans. So this interest gap is where the affordable market lives. All right, so we have number one vehicle, Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria with the National Housing Fund. Have you heard about the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria before? You have? All right, that's good. So it offers 6%, and the loan cap is 50 million naira. So I made a research on this really, and this is how it works. You have to open an account with the Federal Mortgage Bank. When you do, or if you have a pension with the National Housing Fund, so you put about 10% of your salary into that account for 6 months. After 6 months, you are eligible to this 50 million naira loan cap. After 6 months, right? Of course, that does not mean that you can get this 50 million loan cap, but you can get as much as that, or something like a collateral that can help you to build or renovate your house. All right, so, and the tenure period is 30 years, so you spread your payments over the period of 30 years, right? So what it does is that the statutory contribution pool is 152 billion naira collected in 2025 with a 40% yield. That's the most affordable rate in the system, and the subscriber base is 5.5 million. So there are about 5.5 million people presently doing this, going through this route, the Federal Mortgage Bank and the National Housing Fund. The second vehicle is the MOFI RAIF. MOFI, like I said, is a Ministry of Finance Incorporated Real Estate Investment Fund. RAIF, Real Estate Investment Fund. And they offer 9.75% on whatever loan they give to you. And the loan cap varies, and it's up to 25 years. So I've not done as much research on this as I did on the Federal Mortgage Bank of Nigeria. And then there is the NMRC, the third vehicle, which is a Nigerian Mortgage Refinance Company. It is bond-led, so that means they sell bonds, you buy their bonds and they use it. And then their loan cap is about $228 million US, and then their tenure period is longer than the first two. All right, so these are three vehicles, four really. When you look at National Housing Fund, makes four. These are four vehicles that you can research and get into. The easiest really is the Federal Mortgage Bank, all right, which is why most companies, they partner with NHF when they are paying, when they are asking you to, when they are making deductibles. Then the HR knows a little bit about this, all right? So when they're making deductibles, they tell you that for housing. So most companies prefer to work with the NHF because it's much easier to access. All right. Okay, let's move forward. So a small market with high catching leads. All right, so we have 483 billion naira in the open market. 483 billion naira in the open market, which totals the real estate funds and investment opportunities that are available. And this data was taken from December 2025. And then we look at the UPDC rate. This rate means UPDC is a company. UPDC is a company that has a real estate investment trust. REIT is a real estate investment trust. So for folks that love to buy stocks, there are REITs, real estate investment trust, where you put your money, fractional shares in real estate. It works. All right. They yield about 38%. Then there's SFS REIT. There's Union Homes rate. I think you must be very familiar with Union Homes, right? Union Homes rate. Then there's Mofi rate, real estate investment, and then there's Nigerian rate. Nigerian rate is the least yielding in 2025, but you can still look at it and then see what works for you. All right. So from annual lump sum to monthly access, a new layer of platforms is rewriting how Nigerians find, finance, and manage homes. Each takes one piece of the broken housing experience and rebuilds it as a software. So there are a lot of tech solutions to what we have today as a problem. There's a Split, which is a rent subscription platform. It offers furnished apartments on monthly to quarterly subscription, replaces the year upfront lock with managed leases and automated rent. There is the small tenant credit, small app. It's a credit scored tenant vetting plus monthly rent. There is the House Africa that helps with title verification, digitizes land records and ownership history, tackles the 60% untitled land problem at the transaction layer. There is the Estate Intel, which provides market intelligence, supply, vacancy, and pricing data across major city. The diligence layer, institutional capital, was missing here though. Then there's procurement. Construct helps with procurement of materials in marketplace, connecting developers with vetted suppliers, cuts waste, leakage, and delay in building phase. And then there is a Quaba, that's in the rent and finance management. It spreads annual rent into monthly installments, more like financing your rent. All right, and then Vehicle runs estate-wide service charge, utilities, and access in one platform. So these are a little bit of solutions that some folks in Africa and Nigeria have come to create to tackle the problem. So cost down, speed up, and carbon out. So what does this mean? With cement up to 442% and granite up to 307% since 2019, the unit economics of conventional build are under siege. This is why most developers will tell you that it is impossible to build and sell at an affordable price. All right, yeah. So I was in the middle of a project in was it 2023? So I told my client that he wanted to build a small horse stable for his horses at a village in Imo State. So I went there and then I made a quotation. And from experience, I do make quotations from foundation to finishes. And then I had about 10% to 20% miscellaneous. So while we're working, and I think we're almost done with the block work, when my cement supplier just called me. Architect, cement has shot up. Waiting, what's happening? I said from 4K, cement has entered 8K. Say, hey, what? But I was not afraid because I already added that, that stuff into it. And now my sad thing is my client did not know what I saved him from anyways. So I didn't get enough thank you. So modular construction, pillar one, there's modular construction. Now, modular construction reduces the build time by 50%. What is modular construction? It is that, so in design, anything that is divided by 3 is modular. So that's why about 3 meters by 3 meters is modular. All right. I hope you're getting something.
Yes.
So 6 corridors, 1 ticket. I hope it's not too, the numbers are not too much, right? 6 corridors, 1 ticket, and 1 ticket window. I think this will interest a lot of us here. So we have Lagos, Lagos Belt, Ibeju Lekki Epe corridor, which is a corridor that we can look into. Lekki Deep Sea Port plus Dangote Refinery Anchor land value uplift, and then strong off-plan absorption from middle-income buyers. Then there is the Epe and the eastern flank, which is a classic land banking play. A lot of investors are looking to Epe now. They buy in bulk because of the land banking. Someone spoke to me recently, like, there's one land in Epe of 3 million naira for 600 square meters. Sadly, I didn't have the 3 million naira. I tried to speak with banks to see how I can achieve the 3 million naira, but I couldn't, and that's really sad though. I would have had at least 2 plots of land in Epe by now, but the land is gone now. So anyways, there'll always be new lands to buy. So Epe and the eastern flank corridor. Then we have the slum retention zones, Lasura. Then Abuja and tier 2 cities, we have the Kubwa and Lugbe satellite belts. We have 20,000 plus renewed hope units in FCT. Civil servants plus young professionals demand at 8 million naira to 15 million naira price band. Now you may be thinking that 8 million naira is too much. I mean, it's much for someone like you. I mean, how much am I earning for me to buy an 8 million naira property? But that's why we say that when you key into the vehicles, the government vehicles that have been provided, you can spread your tenure by 30 years, all right? Then there's the Port Harcourt and the South, and then there's the Ibadan and Kano, the tier 2 cities, all right? So the affordable mid-market of 8 million to 35 million per unit are where teachers and civil servants and young professionals actually buy. It's actually, it's feasible though, if you look at the fact that you can spread your tenure by 30 years. An average civil servant has 30 years in service. Investment models that are priced honestly. So there are listed rates. Like I said, rate is real estate investment trusts. We have UPDC, it's a company. We have SFS, we have Union Homes, Nigerian rate, and we have the MOFI. Between 9 to 30% distribution yield, and then 1 to 5 liquid years. Then we have the build to rent, and then we have off-plan development and land banking. What I didn't add here is rent to own. There's rent to own. I don't know if it's already in play in Lagos, but it's a federal government initiative presently. You can research it where you can rent, and then from there you pay your rent for about 20 years or 30 or less, and then once you click that cap, you own that place. You own that place. So there's rent to own. All right, so where is the future going? So we started from data infrastructure. National Housing Data Center stands up and gets the deficit and begin to underwrite supply pipelines. Right now, we're going to title digitization, which is Lagos State is doing that right now. Title digitization, state level EC of O program scale, right? Then modular at scale, which is where we are supposed to be, all right? Modular at scale, where you build things prefab in the factories. Prefabricated means that you design and then you build it in the factory, all right? And then there is a green premium, which is the edge certified stock, and then there is a mortgage marketing, which is 5 times larger. I really do hope that the government will provide more facilities to help with the mortgage market in Nigeria. It will help a whole lot. So again, don't forget, we have $15 billion that is waiting for the grasp. And so we fit in anywhere. Honestly speaking, we fit in anywhere. So the total financing required to clear the 14.9 million unit deficit at 3.5 million naira average construction cost per unit, and the size of the addressable opportunity by 2030 is $15 billion. All right. So Nigeria's housing opportunity is no longer the deficit. It's not about the deficit any longer. It's a demand that needs to be addressed, demand that needs to be answered. So the takeaway here is, number one, the deficit is measured at 14.9 million units. The capital need is 15 billion US dollars, and it's now a number we can underwrite. The second takeaway is that the plumbing, which is the vehicles, NHF, MOFI, NMRC, and pension equity is finally wired. All right, and mortgage GDP has only one direction to move. So mortgage GDP is the only vehicle that needs to be pushed. Maybe because the fuel is too high, so they can't buy the fuel for their vehicles yet. But then NHF, MOFI, and NMRC, that's something we can look into. All right. And then the third takeaway is that the price points that win, 8 million to 35 million, are also where 80% of Nigerian household demand actually sits. All right. We can do it. You can do it. All right. Thank you so very much. I would love to receive your questions. Thank you.